Hello, and welcome to Wholesome Conversations with HOLISTICEDU. It's been a lovely journey here with every week we bringing to you different people who are doing amazing work to make children's lives better. Be it storytellers, be it educators, be it creative artists. There are a lot of people who are doing really good work. And in this series, we brought to you someone who is really special. Meenakshi is a trained architect, she's an educator, and she's the founder of Puvidam. Puvidam translates to love for the earth, and everything that happens in Puvidam sits within this philosophy. So I'm deeply honored today to have with us Meenakshi. Let me add her here. Hello, Meenakshi.
Hi.
Hi, and I'm
Nice.
so honored to have you here.
Me too. I'm honored to see the young generation taking the lead and bringing about change. It's a good thing.
Thank you. I think we are just simply trying to walk in your footsteps. And what big footsteps they are. I mean, you've taken in a place like Dharmapuri, you in a place that's, I don't know, was arid, was barren, and you created something that's like such a garden of Eden out there. It's been a wonderful journey. Like from the time I first read about Puvidam, and then I just kept reading about it, and then I visited the place. I have never stopped being amazed by it. So I read through your story, and I read about how you had 12 acres of barren land in Dharmapuri, and you built it up to what it is now. Puvidam is so well known. You have got so many awards for rural development, for education, and still I think the philosophy that you started out with is still there. It's still there in every corner of Puvidam. So tell us something more about it, about your journey, about Puvidam.
Yeah. So I could say that Povidam is the culmination or the process, I would say. Not yet, we are not culminated yet. It's the process of trying to create a society that is egalitarian, simple, and humble in front of nature. So we want to be in nature, with nature, and experience our lives through nature, rather than go from the other end where everything is very technical and everything is very overpowering of nature and conquering nature. So that I feel is impossible, and we have learned it. I think we all know by now that it's not possible to conquer nature, and now nature will always give us a nice pat on our backs and tell us, "Hey, where are you going?" So I think I realized that for me, trees were a beautiful thing, and I missed the trees. I was in Bombay, and there used to be a tree very far off, and I used to look at it and actually talk to it and say that, I wish there were more of you. And I used to climb trees. And so it ended up being that I planted trees, which I missed when I was young, and it has become a forest. And in this process, I learned a lot about myself, in the process of working alone, working with the soil, working with my hands, and being in this place away from noise, away from light. This has given me kind of a understanding of what a human being is meant to do on the planet. And this is what we are trying to share with our children, that as human beings, our task is actually the task next to the creator. And the creator creates, but then you need a caretaker. So otherwise it will not continue. It's like a garden, right? Somebody may plant the seeds, but then somebody has to every day look after it. Otherwise it's not going to happen. So our role could be, be caretakers of this planet. We could be people who are conscious of things when they are going one way or the other and try and make a change. Rather, we are lost because we don't know who we are. We don't know our role on the planet. And like all other animals, they are not bothered about their role on the planet. They are there and they live in the present moment, and they therefore they don't do any harm. They live in that cycle of nature. But human beings, we try to understand our purpose, and we somehow at some point understood that our purpose is to conquer nature. And I think that's where everything went wrong. We're trying to correct that and see if it's possible. Because for 10,000 years and more, people have lived in the forests and the earth has been intact. So what is it that prevents us from still being in that space where we understand and care for nature, and we are able to fearlessly be in the space with other animals and other creatures? So that is the kind of space we're trying to create.
Right, and that is what I saw. I think so. One of the things that really struck out for me when I was at Puvidham was how one child had I think, the task or the responsibility of feeding the dogs that live on the premises. So when I was speaking to the children, I'm like, "What do you do? What do you do?" And someone is like, "I make chapatis. I do this. I do that." And one child was like, "Oh, I feed the dogs." And I was like, that's so cute. And when they were all sitting together and talking, sitting together and eating, there were also those two dogs and their two trays. And yeah, I think that really sort of shows, where you have actions and then you have words. So I think there's actions. I could just see that over there, that we are living in harmony with nature, with the animals around us. So that's beautiful. I also remember, Meenakshi, when I asked you for this one word, like a one sentence core belief, that you gave me the sentence that learning is an instinct, it's intuitive, and it's our fears that cause a barrier to learning. And that sentence, it's amazing. It's something that I've been telling it to a lot of people since then, that do you know, this is something I heard recently. I see that that's also then reflected in Puvidam. I understand that's your core belief, and you made sure that's the philosophy of Puvidam. So tell us more about that. How do you implement it in Puvidam?
So actually, we try to ensure that the children are not forced to read and write. Okay, they're not forced to read and write, but they have to be part of taking care of the community, taking care of the dogs, working in the garden. There they cannot have a choice, and the only choice is you can do either this or that, but you can't not do anything, because when you don't do anything, then you don't deserve to eat. That is our ground line. So if you've not done anything, then ask yourself, because actually everybody else has done things for you today, and you are actually eating their bread, not your own. You haven't earned your bread. There's a very this thing that we keep talking, and whatever you take up this sweeping of a small place, care for it, look after it, do it, because unless you are caring for something else, it is very difficult to let go of our ego. So, and we are so self-centered all the time, so much in how I feel, how I do, but what about the things that we are using, the spaces that we are using, the animals in our care, or the wild ones even? How do you connect with them? So the only way is by caring for them, by being with them. And then there comes in the thing that how do you interact with a dog if you're afraid of a dog? So then we talk about the children who are already comfortable. They help the new kids to pet the dog, and then a few days, 2 or 3 days, everybody is comfortable. So we take our fear literally by the horns. Say, okay, if you have fear of dog, then come. Here is the dog, and let's face it. If you have fear of snakes, come on, let's go for a walk and let's see snakes. There was one child who was afraid of chicken. And I said, come, we have to face this. So we went into the chicken shed, and like when she was outside, she kept saying, no, I'm not going in, I'm not going in. And then once I said, see, if you come in, And if you feel that, these chicken are going to all come and attack you, then I will protect you. I'm here. But if you don't go in at all, then you will always remain afraid of chicken, and you are actually in that, you're controlled by that fear. And do you like to be controlled by your fears? Then she looked at me and she said, I don't want to be controlled by anything else. And I said, that's the whole thing. Come on, let's get in. And then she came in and then she stood next to me. First, she was like sticking to me. Then slowly she relaxed. Then I said, shall we try and take this chick in our hand? She said, no, chinna kutti na, I'll manage. So we picked up this chick. And then the second day, she started feeding the chicken. So that's all. For some reason, they have these fears. And what really it is that you have to face it. You have to first acknowledge that you have a fear, and then stop yourself from reacting to the fear, but respond to it and grow out of it. So this is a process that, fear of the dark. So when we have children's camps, and we have a small track which is completely dark. And we say that for you to, if you're afraid of the dark, then this is a challenge. You have to get from here to that point alone. And children do it because nobody wants to be controlled by their fears. Actually, all of us are controlled by our fears right now. So that is, but the truth is, if you are not controlled by your fears, you experience a kind of a freedom, which is, it's unbelievable. I mean, if you're not afraid of anything, nothing can harm you, right? So it's like I keep telling this the story of Angulimala, and Buddha to the children. So see, he knew that there is a very horrible murderer or whatever in the forest, and he could have become afraid, and he could have moved, not gone in that direction. But his thing is like, okay, maximum, what is going to happen? What are you really afraid of? You're afraid of pain, and you're afraid of death. There's only two things. Whatever the fear, finally it boils down to only these two things. So pain, I can bear. And death, I don't have to bear. After I'm dead, there's nothing. That's all fine. And the kids like this, Sarida. You're right. You're right. So it kind of makes sense to them. And then they start on this journey of trying to become fearless, And it's been going. Yeah, so our kids they'll walk out in the dark, they'll do anything. There's no fear.
Oh, okay. And you're saying that also helps in learning, like once we take the fear away.
Yes. Okay. Because this, finally, why many children don't end up reading is because you're afraid that they may not make it there. So what getting rid of these fears does is it increases your self-confidence. It increases your freedom. And then there are the other things that we tell them that, see, actually reading and writing is no big deal. If you don't read and write also, you can live a good life. What is important is that you have a good heart and you are happy. And you're not trying to torment anybody else. So I'm not going to torment you to read and write. If you don't want to, it's fine. And they're happy doing work. So here it's a work-based education. And we believe that creative work is a very essential part of life and therefore a very essential part of learning also. And then there are all these other studies that, all our nerve endings are at our fingertips. So actually then why do we sit with a pencil and a book? Do nothing with our fingertips. We should work. So all the work they do the digging, the sweeping, the cleaning. All this actually enhances their ability to learn. Apart from increasing their self-confidence and making them feel that they are capable. So if I'm capable, I'll attempt something. If I feel I'm incapable, I'm not going to attempt anything. So how do you make somebody feel capable? When you give them a small task and they do it and they themselves, I don't even say that, that's great. They know it, it's good. They have done it. And they can also compare the product of what they have done with what somebody else has done. And they can make a comparison and say, okay, next time I have to do a better job. So, or this is good enough for me. Whichever, they can decide. There is no comparison. But whatever, they know what they are capable of. And that is very important. That is very important.
Okay, so that's what you try and get in the kids, that you see your capacity and not a comparison with someone else's capacity.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That makes sense. So another thing is a lot of kids come from the nearby village, right? So most of them, I understand, are children of farmers, locals. Farming is also something that's the core of Puvidam. You have a
Yes.
organic farming that happens, and I saw a lot of kids out there. Even I think I saw a boy driving the tractor and taking it around the farm. So, how has farming been like the core of your curriculum? How have you planned that around Puvidam?
See, actually, when I came here, my whole thing was to get away from the city and the pollution and the corruption and that senselessness of life in the city. So when I came here, my first task was to just be in nature, and it was a wonderful experience. Be in silence. And as my kids started growing up, I realized that what is this education all about? What is it? And here, you see, we are born with this body. We need to take care of this body. For looking after the body, we need food. But we don't know where our food is coming from. Somebody is growing it somewhere, somebody is trading it, somebody is adding some chemicals to keep it for a year or two. Finally, what we get, I don't even know if it's food.
Mm,
So, what is the purpose of a life in me if I want to feed it poison? And so I felt that understanding food and where it came from and being able to create food would perhaps
mm,
be the only thing that I would want to learn,
okay.
because that would connect me with my body. So there are,
Mm,
there are three. There's the mind, there's the body, and there is the spirit or the soul or
mm,
whatever.
right.
So the soul is eternal and it comes and goes, and the mind is the disturbing factor. But the body is clean. You can work with it, and the soul and the body can unite very fast through work.
Okay.
And it is important that we know where our food is coming from. We should know how to grow our food, how to save seeds, because the way the world is today, we don't know what's going to
Mm,
happen tomorrow. All of a sudden, if everything collapses, at least if you know the basics, you'll manage to
mm,
survive. If you're alive after
mm,
the Holocaust or whatever you want to call it, it's likely to
mm,
happen anytime, and I am prepared for that. So my thing was, I want to prepare my children for that eventuality. They should
mm,
know how to grow their food. They should know how to keep seed, and
mm,
then they should know how to take care of their body. So when they know how food is grown, then they will also start eating everything that is grown. Whatever is available in the season, that only you can eat. You can't say, I don't like
mm,
this, because there's no like or dislike for food, because you worked so hard to grow it. So you like
yes.
everything, you enjoy everything, and you relish the fact that you've grown it with your own hands.
Mm,
And then to understand what the food does once it goes into your body.
mm,
So these were the things that we started with, that organic farming, and then how food becomes medicine, how food is medicine. So you eat in such a way that you are all the time in good health. So
mm,
food is medicine. That's the other concept that we follow. And so every day there will be something or the other, which is, a very good herb, which is mixed up with the chutney or mixed up with the chapati or whatever. This becomes a part
mm,
of our food cycle. So, and we have to understand the organs in our body, how they function. And because if we have to understand our body,
mm,
we have to understand how the food is grown, and we have to understand how the two integrate and work.
mm,
So this was the original idea. That's what we started with. And then it came to that, okay, if you need to grow food, then you need to know about soils. So you need to how to create soils, how to conserve soils, how to conserve water. So from that end, it just it
grew.
expanded till, yes,
Mm,
to this whole thing that, yeah, forests. And because forests are the ultimate water conserving entities, so that's how
mm,
it came about. And then on the other end, after eating, after food, then you have the other basic needs. So spinning, weaving, carpentry, clay work, all this
mm,
work that you do, you will need it. That's how the people lived for thousands of years. So
mm,
and the major thing that I found, I didn't know it at that time, but as we started going, I realized that when children create with their hands, they know the value of that thing. It may be beautiful, it may not be beautiful, that doesn't matter to them. They feel great that they've made it. The pride that they
Right.
have, that auntie, look, I made this, and I cannot say anything but beautiful to it, because it's the expression of who they are. And that feeling of being a creator, it embodies them with a feeling of abundance. It embodies them with a feeling of confidence. Nothing can shake them after that. So then I said, okay, this is the way to go. You create, you keep creating, whether it's creating a clean space, or creating food, or cooking food, or creating objects of use. So we don't create artifacts just to hang on the wall. That's another policy that we have. We don't create things that just are hung, because they'll be feeling useless. I keep telling the kids, how do you feel if you're not just one beautiful thing hanging somewhere? So better make something that can be used, so that every day you enjoy the beauty of it. And that's how crafts were. There was nothing that was there just for the heck of it. And it's the arrogance of man that creates these things which hang around outside, because they feel the beauty outside is not enough. So I have to create beauty and hang it in my rooms. So I personally feel that there is no need for just plain artifacts which are not any use. So beauty has to be integrated into the usability of a product. Yes, that's how it has been happening here.
Right. I think this also came out when I was talking to one of the kids in the school, one of the older kids. I think it was a conversation where we were asking them that, do you feel the need to go to the city? Do you feel the need to earn a lot of money? And she did say something like this, that I know to grow cotton, I know to make my own clothes, I know to grow my own food. So what do I need to go to the cities for? So, and to hear that from a child who was in the 10th standard was really good. And I think it's also a reflection of how much that philosophy has gone into every child. And all the kids around there were just very sagely nodding their head that, yeah, that makes sense, Akka.
Yes. We value the independence, the feeling of freedom that you have. You don't have to go and look for a job. You can just be, and you can use your hands, your body, and you can make a good life out of it.
Right. And this is also quite an old philosophy when you think about Nai Talim. I mean, Gandhiji came up with it so many years. It's not even like some new idea that we've just got in the 20th.
True.
Right. And I know that that's a philosophy that's very close to your heart. Gandhiji's Nai Talim is something that you hold very close to your heart. So has it always been a part, like, when I have a school, when I have a space, I will ensure that Gandhiji's philosophy is followed there? And how else do you implement it? Of course, farming, of course, the products that you create.
Okay, so the paradox is that I didn't know about Gandhiji's Nai Talim till somebody came from, I think, Azim Premji University, and they told us that you're doing what Gandhiji would have wanted to do. So, who is it? Oh, I would like to read, So that is how I came upon it. But I believe in Gandhiji's basic philosophy of living simply, of doing all your work yourself. Any work that I would hesitate to do for another, I should not expect another to do for me. Like, that's why everything that I live by is that, like, if we have to clean our own garbage, you would have seen the composting toilets that we have. We don't want to have the waste, have our fertilizer become waste. So we use our fertilizer in our fields, and we've worked out a system for that. And even the work, the philosophy of work, all the teachers, whoever comes here, actually the first question that we ask these young people who come to join Povidam is, will you clean the toilet? That's what struck me about Gandhiji, that he went and cleaned the toilets. And I said, if a person cannot do that, then there is something stuck in their head about the differences in the work. And like he said, all work is work. And
Right.
there is no higher work, lower work, or anything. We all, if at least the basic work of cleaning, cooking, growing food, spinning, weaving, these are all on par. And there was a time when everything worked that way. They were all on par. There was, okay, there was a barber, and there was a person who made the chappals, but nobody was lower and nobody was higher. All these things happened later, because everything was a usable article and everybody needed the other. We needed the cobbler as much as we needed the barber, as much as we needed the farmer. So they were all on the same plane. And
Right.
slowly, somewhere, we have started putting these things in a kind of ascending or descending order, and we have created this disparity in our heads that some work is something that I would not want to do. So actually, when we have children from management schools and all coming to visit this place, so I often ask them that, so what would you like to do in your life? So then they'd say something usually. And I say, why wouldn't you like to clean the toilets and the streets and there's so much to be done. This planet has gone so bad. The yeeks, who would do that? Then, but somebody is doing it, right? Isn't that person human? And then they'd say, yeah. Then I say, yeah, but why are they doing it? Yeah, they need the money. I said, okay, I'll give you money. Do it. But they get very less money. Okay, I'll give you a lot of money. You still, no, we can't do it. So this thing that we have in our head is actually a barrier to our own growth. So that
Okay.
is the first step. So we talk to the teacher and say, if you cannot clean toilets, if I say toilet in your face like this, then there's something wrong and you cannot definitely not fit into this space. Because here you will have to clean toilets and you'll have to do everything else, with equal respect. Because when children see that we are working at all the levels with equal respect, then all the level becomes one level. And that's what we want to express to the children. So that is one question. The second one we ask is, will you work in the hot sun on the field?
Okay.
Because that will happen. So if you are like, most of the teachers that we have are farmers' kids. So they say, yeah, okay, no issues. But when you have teachers who hear about the school and who come here expecting all kinds of, something great. And when they come here and I say, look, I'm sorry, but you'll have to do, this patch of feeding today from this time to this time. So most of them leave sooner or later because they're not used to it. And that is by itself a way of filtering away the kind of people who cannot value work. Everything else is virtual work. It doesn't exist actually.
Oh.
All these things about all the banking, all the other things, you just see. Does it, it doesn't exist. I mean, why do you need banks? If we had a way of living in a community by supporting each other, you don't need banks. All these things are to make us feel insecure, to make us hoard. That's become part of the philosophy. That is the capitalist way of controlling us. And fear is, they feed fear. They feed insecurity. They feed this competition. So that we end up, latching onto that system. But what we feed here is we feed abundance. We feed fearlessness. We feed that you're perfect, you're unique. And why do you want to compare yourself with anybody? And these children, they don't need that system. They're very happy to be who they are. So that's how it works.
Yeah, that's that. The children are, I mean, I do see that in every child in Puvidam, the fearlessness and the fact that they're comfortable in what they are. I don't see the aspiration to be someone else or to be like someone else.
Yes.
So that is definitely there. What also struck me was, I remember you showing me the rooms where the kids would show me the echo, that you can stand here and hear what someone is whispering, the dome building. It was quite a unique building. And I know that you're also a trained architect. So how much was it your ideas, and how much do you think that also, changes the way children look at buildings, at structures, and how to be at part with nature? And not, like the concrete structures that take away from nature.
True. So actually, just like we do everything ourselves, even when the buildings happen, all of us partake in it. And because it's mud, we don't have to worry. All the children can go stamp on it, mess with it, have their fun. and also help in the construction and movement of materials and all that. So we worked with the children, and we built it slowly with our own hands, more or less. And it is a building that is made with mud and brick. And the forms, like you would have noticed, are circular. So see, actually this rectangular form, this square form, this very rigid forms, I feel somehow also end up making us think in straight lines. And since I believe that everything is a cycle, it's a spiral, it, kind of, it grows spirally, everything is spiral. You can't say it's a circle, but it is definitely a spiral. There's a different level, like all the tribal people were at one time one with nature, and they lived like that. And then we went through all this rubbish, and now I think at least many of us realize that yes, the tribal is not the tribal, it's me who is primitive and doesn't understand nature. And understanding of nature is the knowledge we need, not all this other understanding of machines, because that's going to take away our lives finally. So that spiral. So once you want, if you be in that kind of a space, you're in a circular form, I think it's easier to understand that everything is circular, and it breaks the rigidity of the mind. That's my feeling. That's why all the spaces will be, I don't think we have one rectangular building which we built in a rush, because at that time our school we had only a thatch roof, and they said that thatch roof is going to catch fire, and so you have to build something else. So it's the only rectangular building. Otherwise, all buildings are circular, hexagonal. Yeah. So I think it has an impact on children's attitude to structures, attitude to themselves, and attitude to the environment. It does have an impact.
And there must be also a feeling of ownership, like to study inside the building that you created or you were a part of creating. That should be a really wonderful feeling for each child.
Yes, actually that comes even with the garden and with the cleaning. See, because when you take pains to clean a space, without taking ownership, you wouldn't be doing it. And that is the reason why we have incorporated it into our curriculum, I would say. Because what we normally do, what is the norm, is that this is somebody else's job, this is somebody else's job, and I will do only this. And so it doesn't work like that. That's how, specialization that's brought us here. What we need is everybody who cares. Everybody should be in the caring mode. Okay, whatever is to be done should be done, and I will do it. To move and facilitate things to happen, rather than to stand and say, okay, this is not done, that is not done. It's very easy to point fingers and to create differences, but it's so much better to take ownership and say, okay, fine, today I will do it, and be cool about it. That is very important. So that is the reason why we have indulged in work-based. And that is what I think Gandhiji meant when he said the Nai Talim thing. He said people should be working, and there is so much to learn through the work. I mean, you go to weaving, it's all mathematics. You go to farming, it's all mathematics. There's nothing like, it's all history. You can decide on which plant you want to know the history of, and you can go and study. You want to know the history of the soil, you can get. So everything can be connected through these activities. It's the system, it has created these different subjects. And that is the segregation of the subjects has caused segregation of the mind and segregation of the person itself. What we think is integration is necessary. You need to be an integrated person. There's no integrity in anybody nowadays, because they have not learned what is integrity. They've only learned how to separate things and how to put them in different boxes. They haven't learned how to integrate things, how to become who they are. And that is where I think this subject teaching is kind of very harmful, because it doesn't exist like this. It exists in unity, and it has to be experienced in unity.
That makes sense. Like when you think of real life, I think school is the only place where we actually learn things in a fragmented way. The minute you
Yes,
come to real life, it's always in an integrated way. No matter
yes,
where you work, you're always taking a little bit of knowledge from everything, putting it together, and creating, working,
yes,
helping. So,
true.
yeah, I definitely believe in that. Also, one of the things I thought about is how, especially the rural area, how very often the education becomes bookish. It actually takes the child away from the community he lives and should be helping, but the
Yeah.
knowledge in the textbooks makes him think of cities and going there, and very rarely actually helps the community, his parents, his neighbors, etc. And one of the things that about education for sustainability was also talking about creating an aware citizen or an aware human being who then does problem solving, is more proactive, helps in the community. So, how is Puvidam inculcating that? How are the kids interacting with the community, helping them?
Okay. So actually, I would like to differ and say that what is in the books is not knowledge. It is information. And so this whole thing that I'm getting, I'm becoming more knowledgeable by reading is something that is a misnomer. Okay. This is my feeling. And
Mhm.
yes, you can differ. But
I
this is
do
my thing.
agree. Yeah.
So our thing is that since actually when we started the school itself, I felt that what a school does is it takes away the resources from the place and it pulls them into industries who are waiting. And I mean, actually, that's why the schools are designed like this. So we wanted to design a school where the children will respect what their parents have been doing and will continue to do that work because it's worth doing. No, they will feel the value and see the value of that work. And so from the beginning itself, even if it's a pre-KG 3-year-old kid, our question, like the discussions in the morning will be, okay, what did you do in the morning? When you woke up, whom did you help? Did you help the goat kid, or did you water a plant? Did you help your mom in any which way? So this thing of taking partnership in the things that are happening around you. And we have a small rule for it. We say like there are 5 tasks that you do for yourself, which is like brushing your teeth, having a bath, eating your food, making sure that your bag is in order, and then washing the plate that you have eaten. Even if you're 2-year old, you're supposed to wash your plate. That's something that you must do, you must learn. So that is there. And the other 5 things are for the environment around you. So you do something for your mother, something for a plant, something for an animal, something for the house by cleaning it, and something for anybody who is coming and going on the road. You can do anything, whatever you feel like doing something, so do it. So these are questions that almost every week some 2 or 3 children will be asked. Okay, so what did you do? So why don't you share? So they will share, and sometimes they'll tell lies. So they'll say, "Oh no, Padne, I did this for my mother and all." I said, "Okay, great, wonderful." Then I'll say, "Okay, tomorrow I'm going to call your mother, huh?" Then he comes. Actually, I didn't do, but I'll do tomorrow. Okay. So that is how they say something because they want to look good and feel good. Then you say, yeah, okay, then I'll call your mom tomorrow and ask her and say, actually, I didn't do, but I will do tomorrow. So this is a kind of a reminder for them that this work is very important, that they have to participate in maintenance of their spaces. And so that starts then. And this organic farming is it's not just the farming thing. We have the nursery, we collect herbs, we collect the seed. So all this gives them a lot of knowledge of that is knowledge. When you
Right.
go out and you collect the herbs and to identify the difference between this particular grass and that particular grass, and this is good for the goats and this is actually very good for the sheep, which that is knowledge. That means that you've observed something and you've internalized it and you can never forget it. That is what knowledge should be all about. So knowledge is created, it is not learned. And that is why learning is an instinct and everything else is just information.
Information.
So yes. So and when we start pressurizing the children to just read the books and repeat what is in the books, they actually lose a part of themselves. They kind of think that the way they have learned so far, like if you say start at age 0 when the child is born, the age of 1 year, nobody is teaching anything to the child.
Right.
But isn't the child learning?
Yeah.
Child is learning so much. Actually, the learning curve is cheapest in that period. Yeah, but we don't teach at that time. But as soon as the child can understand us, then we start our bantering, all this rubbish. But what if we have allowed the child to go in that same mode of learning? Can you imagine how steep the learning curve could be? Because
Right.
they want to know and they want to learn. And you just give them the experiences. They are creating knowledge. They're not reading a formula and dumping it on the piece of paper.
Right.
They are going to be using it. They are going to be seeing problems, solving them, and creating solutions for that. So if we want to do that kind of a learning, then the children have to discuss things amongst themselves. So we talk, so like in our 7th and 8th level, we talk to the children and try to find out that, okay, so what do you think about the way of life that is there now, and maybe say 4 years back, how things were in our village? And would you like to find out? Then we create a survey. They go to the villages and we try and find out how things were 20 years back and how things are now and how people visualize they will be 20 years hence. So you get a kind of a graph, that yes, say, and we take up different topics. So we take up healthcare, then we take up physical abilities. Now, on our how often people fall sick now and how often they fell sick earlier, and what do you think where this is going? So we found that people are very conscious. People know that 20 years back nobody fell sick. We hardly ever needed to go to a doctor. But now every second day we are sitting at the doctor's thing. And then we even try to talk to the children about why do you think that's happening? And they identify it with fear. They say it's because of the fear. And so that is where the learning really happens. That they know that people know, but there is somewhere they are caught up. So what is it that they are caught up in? And then they say it's the economy, it's the money, and then why do we need the money? We need money because if you want all these things, then you need money. You don't want them, then you don't need it. So that's how our children have got a perspective that we can decide whether we want them or not want them.
Right.
And if we don't want them, actually we are free. If you want them, that's when you become a slave. So
wow, that's so true. Akka, we have someone on Facebook who is saying, "What we dream and aspire, you're making it happen in reality." So,
okay, thank you.
I think your words are being. Yes, Akka.
I hope their dreams become true too. So the whole thing for me is that we could use this pandemic situation to take the education away from the system, away from the central control, from the factory schools, and bring it back to the communities. This education can become real education. Knowledge can be created within the community. Children can become who they are meant to be, creative, young, beautiful individuals. And this could be the time of mushrooming of these kind of schools everywhere. So hold on to your dream. It's coming true.
That's lovely. So you just now said that this is the time when schools could do that, or even people who want to start schools could do something of that sort. So maybe could you share a few tips or techniques that if someone wants to start a space like this and does believe in education for sustainability, but doesn't know how, maybe a few techniques or things like, I really like the idea you said about asking a child for 5 things that they did for the environment. And I think that makes so much more sense than doing the in a lot of schools you have the multiplication tables. Every day you come out in the assembly and one child says the multiplication tables. I mean, instead of that, this question makes far more sense. So anything else like that the schools could adopt?
See, actually, I personally believe that schools should be small. There should be small communities of people who are all learning and all helping each other to learn. So if anyone wants to start a space where children learn, first of all, they have to be in the learning mode. If they want to start a space where children are going to be innovative, first they have to be experimenting with themselves and their lives. So if they are in fear, they cannot create a space where children can be fearless. So, everything that you want your school to be, you have to be. So the work is inside. You have to work inside of yourself, and you have to become everything that you want the child to become, the children to become. Otherwise, you cannot be an inspiration, because nothing can be taught, but a lot can be inspired. And that is what I think this particular time can, inspire all of us to follow our intuition, to latch on to our little dreams, and to throw away this economy somewhere, and minimize and live a simple life, and big in our feeling of abundance, and very small in our fear. Of course, there'll always be a wee bit of fear, but the more major thing would be to expand our love for each and every human being. Forget the differences, remove the. So when we say fears, that's also we need to have these. I should tell you this. These 3 freedoms that I have a formula for. Okay, so first is the freedom from fear. That you have to be completely free of fear. You cannot be afraid of anything, because if you are afraid, anything that you want to do can be manipulated and changed. That is one thing. The second thing is that you have to be completely free from like, dislike, or happy, unhappy kind of a situation. Whatever happens, you have to be able to take it up as a challenge. And if it's a good thing, it's a good challenge. If it's a bad thing, it's a bad challenge. That's all. But it's a challenge nevertheless. And the third freedom that we need is this freedom of fear of what the community will say, what people will say, what other people are thinking. This need for appreciation in us, that somebody should say that what I'm doing is the right thing. Nobody will say. Believe me, say it to yourself, because that's the only way you're going to do what you want to do. Because if you wait for somebody else to say that, yeah, that's a good idea and you should follow it, it may never happen. So just look for appreciation within. Love yourself. Be confident. I'm sure that anybody who wants to start a space will be starting a space. It need not be called a school. It can just be a space where children find themselves, and leave it there. Why do you want to tutor them and torture them at the same time? Both are the same thing, actually.
I like that, tutoring and torturing coming as synonyms. Right. I like this. The fear from validation, to stop the fear from validation. And okay, that's a beautiful thought. We have someone else who also says the same thing. I'm from the industry and talk about sustainability and circular economy in a big way. Now I feel this is only talk. Yours is the right way. I think a lot of us.
Please join us. It's very easy. You just have to drop it and come away. It's very easy. See, many of these things that we carry, we choose to carry. If we choose to drop, it's finished. Just move on. So who's stopping me from dropping my burdens? Nobody, except myself. So yeah,
that's true.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. This has been such a lovely talk, Meenakshi, and I'm so happy that I had this conversation. And we will be saving this. We'll save this and put it up on our YouTube and Insta, so that people who have missed parts of it can always, get back and hear you. And you inspire so many people that I want this to reach different forums, so that people also start thinking. I think the thought, that seed is important.
Yes.
Right.
No, this whole thing of the school is actually very dangerous, because in schools you evaluate. And that is not something that anybody likes. I'm sure as an adult, if somebody starts evaluating me, I'd be, like, okay, I don't like this person, I want to move away. But we do it to the children all the time. And that is where we create this violence in children, we create this self-doubt in children, we create all these negative emotions. But why do you need to evaluate them? They will learn. Why don't you have the faith in them? They will learn when they need to learn. There are stories like there's this Sudbury Valley School that's also talking about allowing the children to learn. And there's a story there where there's a child who never learned to read and write till the age of 14.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing that child did was fishing. And the parents got worried and everybody got worried. But the founder, he said, see, if he is fishing now, let him fish. What's your problem? The day he will, just like he is focused on fishing now, the day he decides he will focus on reading, he will read. And that's exactly what happened. That person actually grew up to become a physicist.
Right.
So, it doesn't take much to read the ABCD and learn it. I mean, can you imagine? It'll take you like hardly 2 months to learn any language if you put your mind to it. Then why do you put the children through so much torture, like read A, read B, and what is the point? Just tell stories and let them enjoy the hearing. That's the natural process of learning to read. You learn to listen, and then you learn to speak, and then you learn to read. It's automatic. But you have to give that time. You need to give that time for children. And that's what we are not doing. We're trying to hurry the kids up into becoming readers and writers. What is the big deal? There's a whole life ahead. Let them enjoy the moment. The child is in the moment. Child is living in the moment. Every child is a Buddha. They know what it is to be mindful. But now there are schools that are teaching mindfulness. This is really, for me, I mean, what? You're teaching and there are happiness schools also. So for me, this was really very, it's like you take everything away from one person and then give it to them piece by piece.
Yeah, that's so true. I did read. Yeah, I did read that book. I think it was Free at Last. And I remember this example struck me and it stayed with me for a long time, that when the child decided I wanted to learn, he learned it, I think, like in a week or 2 weeks or something.
Yes.
There was probably even one more example of a girl who refused to read, and then she saw others reading books or something. So she goes to him and says that, you know what, I want to read those storybooks. Can you just teach me the alphabets? And she learned it in a week or something.
Yes. That's how it happens, actually. That's how it happens. If there is a need, then the learning happens. Without a need, you force the child, pull them down, say, come on, you should be sitting 3 years old and you're not sitting in one place. But why should the child sit in one place? He's got so much energy. And you know what? Movement is what is going to make his brain sharper. Nature has designed us like this. We have to move. Everybody, all these autistic schools, they've found out that if you miss out on these movements, then you have these difficulties later on. Allow the child to move, just let them be. And of course, involve them in the work, make them feel capable, make them feel responsible. And then you will have individuals who will be, like you said, proactive in everything that is happening around them. They will take responsibility because they know that they're capable of taking responsibility. And they know that you trust them. That's a huge huge thing. If I know somebody is trusting me, I will make sure that I don't make a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. Living up to that, I think, becomes, especially for children, I think it becomes a lot when you show that I believe that you can do it. He'll do somersaults to make sure that he does it and shows it to you.
Yes, so that trust is very important. That trust, complete faith, complete love. Even if you fail, it's okay. It doesn't matter. You did your best and that is all that is needed. Don't need more. So that is where I feel we have to take our space with children.
In a space of trust.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Akka. With this, I'll really say thank you so much. I'm so happy you could join us. And yes, we will share it. I will share this with you so that we can get this message across. So thanks a lot. And to all the viewers, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this broadcast.